Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to this workshop. I'm Sarah Junaid from Aston University, UK, and I'd like to welcome you to this workshop on global citizens and ethical engineers within our CDIO programs. I'm also joined by the workshop team, Yann Selroux from CESI, France, Alison Gwynne-Evans from the University of Cape Town in South Africa, Patrick Granholm from Turku in Finland, and Gunther Bomberg from TU Eindhoven in the Netherlands. As you can see, we're a good spread of people from different parts of the world, so it would be worth explaining how it all started. I wanted to start with a quotation from Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "There is a sort of poverty of the spirit which stands in glaring contrast to our scientific and technological abundance." Now, at the time, he was referring to the racial inequality that was happening in his side of the world. Of course, there are, to this day, inequalities that we are tackling as a community and society. However, as educators in engineering and design, we do focus very much on our technical competencies and the technical skills our students need to achieve as engineers. Sometimes we do overlook the human factors, the ethical decisions they need to make, the judgments that all are embedded in all of these technological competencies. And so what we did was a group of us got together and had got together as a working group in engineering ethics education. And in this working group, we met at Aarhus in Denmark. This was the last physical meeting for CDIO. This was in June 2019. And there we were a team of people who came together from different countries. So there were 10 universities across 9 countries and 5 continents. And this is a map just to show you where everybody came from. Now, what we talked about in this working group, we spent the day sharing our practice, discussing the challenges in engineering ethics. And we did identify a few points that we shared. Partly, some of the points that we identified was that ethics tends to be in the peripheral of our education programs. It tends to be either an add-on or a standalone course, and we felt that it needed to be much more embedded. Now, 2 outputs that came from this working group was, one, that we felt there needed to be some kind of workshop, which is what we're doing today. Something where we can share our practice and work together on how we can embed ethics in a better way in our programs. And the second output, which was more of a pedagogical view, we wanted to look at how CDIO views or positions ethics within its documentation. So our key challenge as a team was we'd like to develop the citizen and not just the engineer. So the workshop aim for today is to teach, to share with you a planning tool that we've developed to rewrite our learning outcomes and constructively align our teaching practice that brings much more prominence to engineering ethics. So to achieve this aim, we have 4 objectives for today. Our first is to identify the learning outcomes relating to our teaching. Now, we'll be providing you with that for today due to time, and collate relevant resources needed. And this is at several levels: at the institutional level, the national level, the professional, and the international level. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The second objective from that is to make decisions about how we would like to teach ethics within this context. So based on our own competencies, what our graduates need, what the requirements are from the different levels, we make decisions about how we're going to teach it. So in objective 2, we will rewrite and justify the learning outcomes with an intended focus on an aspect of ethics that we've chosen. And third is to constructively align these new learning outcomes to our teaching activities and assessments. Now, with these 3 objectives, this is for anybody who's teaching any technical course or topic. So you don't necessarily someone who just needs to teach ethics, you may be teaching any of the technical topics, and this is for you. And it's also for anybody who's more higher level, looking at program level. So you might be a program director as well. It's for everyone. And the fourth objective is we'd hope that this workshop would be a chance to share practice. So if you see any synergy with anybody in the workshop, we welcome you to share your email and continue that dialogue after the workshop. Now, I'm going to introduce you to the tool and give you the tasks that we'll do, and then we'll be doing breakout activities. So as a team, we came together as a CDIO community. So we wanted to see this through the CDIO lens. Now, for those of you who are not that familiar with CDIO, I'll just spend 2 minutes talking about it, just so we're on the same level, on the same page. So CDIO is a teaching framework, and it's an acronym that stands for Conceive, Design, Implement, Operate. It's a way to teach engineering and design. And the CDIO views the engineering graduate as having 4 key points that they need to achieve. The first being that they should appreciate and be able to use engineering processes, that they should be able to contribute and develop engineering products, and that they can do that within engineering organizations and teams. And the fourth point, implicit to all of these, is that there is an expectation that the graduate will be, on a personal level, develop as a whole, mature and thoughtful individual. And it's this final point that we're really working on today. And the key word here is implicit. So the idea is that it's infused in the other 3 points in teaching them processes and product development, etc. So in terms of documentation, the CDIO is really a set of standards, and they started off with 12 principles of effective practice. And now we've recently added 4 optional standards, which deal with more, as our challenges have developed over the years. It's included entrepreneurship, sustainable development, internationalization. So these standards are being updated. Within those standards, we also have a syllabus. So the syllabus covers the key learning outcomes and goals in an undergraduate engineering program. So it does cover the technical and knowledge, as well as the personal and professional skills and the interpersonal skills. Now, all of this encompasses, it's a holistic view of program development. So it covers anything from faculty development all the way to active learning and being able to develop learning spaces that are conducive to that. Now, I mentioned looking at requirements at different levels, so we'll do an overview of that here. Now, on an international level, many of you might have heard of the Global Washington Accord, and this is a set of learning outcomes that many universities across the world are signatories of. Now, these, for some institutions, they feed straight into their program development, so they develop their learning outcomes from this directly. For many of us, we also have national accreditation bodies that we need to, from a legal point of view, we need to address. And these can feed straight into our programs as well. And the kind of the dotted box is we often on a national level, we have codes of ethics, code of conduct, and these can sometimes be, these can be used to drive some of our program development as well. And finally, university policies. We all have them. There are things that we need to achieve from a departmental level. And this is something to keep an eye on when you're developing your courses. So these feed into learning outcomes. For some of us, we don't use all of these. Some of us need just use 1 or 2. And there's a lot of synergy and overlap between them anyway. Now, from our learning outcomes, they feed into our teaching activities and assessments. And if they're designed well, then these 3 together become a constructively aligned teaching model. For today's workshop, this is the model that we're working on, the constructive alignment model. There are other types of teaching models which you are welcome to use. Where does CDIO fit into all of this? Well, it kind of overlaps all of those levels. So at the international level, Cdio was developed internationally. It was several people from different institutions. So it's a transnational initiative. And the syllabus is the same thing. The syllabus, actually, there's documentation on the website to show how it aligns with the UN 4 Pillars of Learning, as well as the ABET, the American accreditation document, and the Washington Accord. In recent years, there's been papers to show how it can be cross-referenced and cross-checked against national accreditation documents like the UK one. So you can find that information online. So our planning tool looks like this, and there are 3 stages to it. The first stage is to collect all the information and resources that might be needed. So if you have learning outcomes for a course you're doing, this is where you might put that information. So my arrow, it shows you on the first column, this is at module or course level. What are your learning outcomes? Now, if you haven't written any at all, you're writing this from new, then you start with the requirements that you need to be aware of. So there are the 3 levels, the national, so the accreditation level, which you would put here, the national and professional level, which you put in the next column, and finally the international level. And at this stage, you're really going through those documents and picking out what you feel is most important or aligns to the topics you're teaching. Once you've done with that, the second part of this stage is to highlight the verbs that link to your teaching. So this is going to be important for the next stage. So we do a color coding at this stage. We highlight verbs in blue, and we highlight ethical topics in red. Once that's done, you can move on to stage 2. And from stage 2, you review those information that you've collected and make decisions about, based on your own competency, what your graduates need, what the requirements are. Seeing that gives you an overview and allows you to make informed decisions about your teaching. So once you're done with that, you go to stage 2. And this is where you take the learning outcomes you have and you reword them, or you write new ones. Now, we've put Bloom's taxonomy here as a way of helping you decide on the kind of the verb levels or the learning levels. Again, as a working group, we felt that even at the accreditation documents, we found that the ethical topics really were described with the lower level of learning, lower learning levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Things like identify, defend, explain, whereas moving up to the higher levels is something that we think would allow us to be able to infuse ethics much better in our programs. So this is a way of reviewing that. You can use other taxonomies, whatever serves your purpose. Once you've reworded them and you're happy with the structure, you'd need a rationale. So you need to explain why you've worded them in the way you did. And once you're happy with that, we move on to stage 3. And stage 3 is you copy and paste your learning outcomes in the first column. And from there, you make decisions about the activities and assessments that would allow you to achieve that learning outcome. So this is where constructive alignment will be important. If you're not aware of constructive alignment, there are resources out there on the internet, and also institutions usually have courses on these, so you can find out more. So I'm going to take you through just the stage 1 step by step, and then we'll break out. Now in stage 1, this is the table we start off with, and at the module or course level, this is an example from one of my own courses. This is a year 2 team project. It's a design, build, test project. And this is my first learning outcome, which is to use CAD, additive manufacturing, in a product design process and be able to embed controls, actuators to design a complete system. So this is a design project. In the second column, I looked at the accreditation for our Institute of Mechanical Engineers, IMechE, and there I identified that the design element, the design component, was important to this project, to this course. So I put that in here in this column. Moving on to the national or professional level, this is optional. Some countries have prescribed curriculum maps for ethics, some don't. In this case, we have a Royal Academy of Engineering curriculum map. So it's an optional thing, but I looked at it and I identified what I think is important. And finally, international. You can use any internationally recognized accreditation or syllabus. In this case, we're looking at Cdio. So this is 2.1, 2.0, and here I identified 0.4 for this point. Now, once I've collected all that information, the next stage is color coding. So I want to highlight the verbs in blue, the ethics topics in red. And this is what you'll be doing in your breakouts. So each of us will take a cell and you'll work on it and do the color coding. So this is what it will look like. So here are the blues and my learning outcomes. And I do the same thing with all of the other cells. Now, in this case, at this point, I review what's here, and I can see that my learning outcome has no ethical links here at all, no ethical topics covered, which is not great, because this is a design project. There are decisions made, and ethical design is an important aspect. So this is definitely something that I would need to change. The other thing I noticed is it's a design module, but I haven't used the keyword design, so that's important. So my next stage is to rewrite the learning outcomes, and I'll do that in the orange box. So reviewing the Bloom's taxonomy, or any kind of taxonomy, as a way of prompting ideas, I then rewrite it like this. So this is my new learning outcome, and here I've added to design a safe and complete system to address a societal need. And this is where I've really highlighted that the importance of the human factors in their decisions. And I need to include my justification. So in this case, the main 2 points was really the design, which is an accreditation requirement, hasn't been highlighted, and I'm missing ethical component, which I've taken from the Cdio syllabus. And finally, moving on, if we have time, to stage 3, we'll talk as a team or as a group on how we could constructively align the new learning outcomes. And this is done in a table. So what we're going to work on today is a Google Sheet, which sets out these 3 stages. And we have 3 breakout groups that we're going to work on. And this is where we'll work on each stage. So in our breakout rooms, we have 3 facilitators to do that. We have a UK group. So if you're interested to join that, you can join me there. We have a South Africa group, and we have a France group. So South Africa will be led by Alison, and Jan will lead the France group. Now, if you select the link, I'm going to, what I'll do is paste the link in the chat, and this link will allow you to access the sheet. And there you'll find 3 tabs. So when you go to those tabs, find the tab that you want to work on, and join us in the breakout to work on them together. We'll be working on them for 45 minutes, and then from there we will join back here for some feedback. I'm sure there are questions that you have. What I will do, though, is invite you to go to the breakout rooms there, and the facilitators will take you through these steps again, and we'll work on them together. Great, so I'm going to set up the breakout group now, and I'm going to name them. So now, if you don't have, if none of these are your country, that's fine. You can join any of these groups. The idea behind these, the principles are the same. We're just going through a few examples for you to see how it's done in practice. So if you don't find any countries that are yours, not to worry. Please join one anyway. So I'm going to open the rooms, and I'll see you shortly. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize. Welcome back. Thank you everyone for participation. We had 2 breakout rooms in the end. So I'd like to spend the last 2 minutes just to share, ask the participants to share with us their experiences with this tool, because we'd like to definitely make it better. So I'd like to invite anyone who wants to make a comment. How did this worksheet speak to you, and did you find it helpful, and what was challenging? So any comments from our participants?
Yep. I can briefly mention it's time consuming, but really in depth. So I really liked it. Yeah.
Okay, it's good to know. Sorry, Yen Tram, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think this reminds me of a learning style called visual learning, because when you put the data in a tabular form, it's everything this is right there for you. So it's within your sight, and you can easily compare the verbs and the ethical things. For me, it works a lot because I am a visual learner. So it helps me to gather and collate the information more quickly and more systematically.
Okay, that's really good to know. What was the challenge behind this, though? What did you find difficult?
It's difficult to sometimes decide which verbs we should use for learning outcomes, like which verb would overlap the meanings of the others or cover those with other verbs and stuff like that.
So do you think there should be more guidance on this, or is it really about more practice?
I think it's just about practice.
Nice. Iman, go for it.
Oh, again, muted. So yeah, just building on what Jan said, I like that it is visual. You can see the color coding. It's easy to navigate. And also the levels, you see the levels of the requirements in one big picture, and you know what directions you can take. It is useful, but at the same time confusing if you try to combine everything in one intended learning outcome. So yeah, here you need to make a choice and prioritize. And maybe also for the language, we have a different understanding of the verbs. So it could be helpful to have some guidance for the verbs. I know it's a lot to go through all the verbs and have the definition, but yeah, it could be also useful. And yeah, overall, I like it. It's visual and super helpful. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, man. That's interesting you point about language, because it can be interpreted in very different ways. There is a danger, though, that because we are talking through English, it's going to be English-centric. So interpretations, there is this danger of like taking over the narrative from your point of view. So there is that. That's great. Thank you. Any other points?
I realized suddenly this is a tool that could be used for other topics than ethics also.
Good point.
So it could be more general tool that could be perhaps introduced to as such.
More
for language, I think it can be. It says if you want to use it in other language, it translate things for you. So just try to think about the taxonomy can be found translated in many languages. So, for instance.
That's a really good point. So make it more inclusive. Yeah. Many thanks. We are out of time now. Spot on 5 past. So I wanted to thank everybody for joining us, to the participants for being really great active participants. I'd also like to thank the team for being here and facilitating, and the host for helping us with the technical side. If you would like to have access to the working tool, the planning tool, you can email me, or you can drop your email in the chat and I will make sure I send you a copy. So with that said, sorry.
That'd be great.
Great. Please post your email, or if you don't want to post your email, please do send me an email then. And finally, I think the plenary session is starting in a few minutes. So again, thank you so much. It's been great to spend this time with you. Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.